Welcome back to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and in this one I'm taking a break from all of Stephen King I'm doing and getting back to the next story in my series of reading everything I can get my hands on in order of publication by Poul Anderson, who my last video for Poul Anderson, Genius, kind of went crazy on YouTube. I couldn't believe I don't know if we're up over 2,000 yet, but we're close. We're way up there. Um, and fairly quickly, too. It's only been a couple weeks. Amazing. I really love that. And I hope all those people watching that one come back and watch this one. Because even though this one is not a direct answer to Asimov's Foundation, you still have some of that idea cropping up again in the next story, his fourth story, published, titled Prophecy. Prophecy was published again in Astounding Science Fiction, edited by John W. Campbell Jr., in the May of 1949 issue. And I read the story in my copy of Call Me Joe, published by Nesfa Press. This is currently available if you go to the Nesfa Press website and look this up. This is volume 1 of a multi-volume series of nice hardcover books that Nesfa Press has published of the collected short works of Poul Anderson. Really, really great that they have this out there and have it currently available to people. And prophecy is in that book. Now, what happens in prophecy? You got the president goes to meet with a group of alien explorers that are inside their spaceship that has landed on the Earth. And they've been kind of going around the Earth checking a lot of things out before they try to contact anybody. So now they're deciding to come and talk to people. And in talking to these aliens, the aliens, they look very much like human beings. And the aliens are telling the president that in their travels, they have found that Earth-like worlds produce human-like races. And so it was no surprise to them to see that we looked a lot like them. Because on a world like Earth, they found this pattern where the same kind of people evolve and the same kind of civilizations evolve, so that they're finding a pattern. See where I'm getting at? That this still is related to Asimov's Foundation. Same basic idea as psychohistory. Asimov took the idea that the fall of the Roman Empire was something that is a cyclical historical event, and that in the future other empires would fall in much the same way. And that, coming from Edward Gibbons, that is the basis for Harry Seldon's whole psychohistory thing, is this idea of the repetitive cyclical nature of history based on human psychology. And that's what's being talked about here, is that because all these different races on all these different worlds evolve pretty much the same way and develop pretty much the same situation, they go through the same historical events. And this being published in 1949, the biggest historical event of that time is the atom bomb and the Cold War. And that, too, the aliens say, is a pattern that they've seen on many, many other worlds. Fascinating how Anderson is basically taking Asimov's idea of psychohistory, and he's using it as the basis now for two different stories, two very different stories, but all springing from that same basic science fictional idea. Now, somebody in the Genius Video made a comment, and this probably is true because we do know Campbell did invite writers into his office and have long conversations, and a lot of the best stories of the 1940s were planted in their heads by John Campbell. Campbell didn't tell them how to write the story, so the story is only really good because the writers were really good, but the seed of that story often came from John Campbell. And so it may have been Campbell kind of orchestrating this, trying to see how many different variations of Asimov's basic idea Poul Anderson could pull out of his bag. It's just a short story, but it's a very good story. But modern readers may get frustrated by the fact that this whole story is just one conversation between the president and these aliens. And the whole story is this whole idea. That's it. The characterization is only as deep as it needs to be to carry the idea. So you're not getting deep characterization, you're not getting much world building here, you're not getting any action. The idea is king in this story. It really is. It's what it's all about. But it's an interesting idea, and it's very well handled. The writing is good, so the conversation is interesting. It's not boring. It's not like a lecture. It's an interesting conversation. So once again, Poul Anderson is digging into Asimov's playbook and coming up with something new and unique. And it just shows you the power of a creative writer to take an idea that's already been done, and one which even he had already done in a different form, and just kind of recast it in a new light and come up with a completely new story out of it that just doesn't, reading Prophecy, you don't feel like you're reading Asimov's Foundation at all. I mean, you can see the similarities, but in the idea of psychohistory, but this story is nothing like anything in the Foundation series. It's nothing like Genius. It's a very unique story. And that's the brilliance of Poul Anderson and his writing. Interesting. And remember, this is only number 4 in his published works, and he's writing such strong stories. Great. So have you ever read Prophecy? If so, leave comments. Tell me what you think about Prophecy or other thoughts about Poul Anderson or this whole thing about the psychohistory idea that seems to be getting rehashed here. Do you think it was right for Campbell to do that? Do you think it was right for Poul Anderson to go and base 2 stories in a row on this same basic idea of cyclical history? Leave your comments. The next Poul Anderson coming up, still in 1949, is a story titled Entity. So I hope you'll come back and join me to hear my discussion of that story and all the other Poul Anderson. I'm going through everything if I can. And all the other authors that I'll be talking about. I got a lot more Stephen King to come. I hope you're not getting tired of King. I'm not. I'm loving his stories too. And I'm also not getting tired of Poul Anderson. I'm kind of getting Emily excited, so maybe I can drag her into this whole series of Poul Anderson stories. We'll see. Maybe this will work this time. And anyway, until then, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for us, and come on back and join me.